It is on. Donald Trump campaigned under the promise of from day one to close the border and start to remove undocumented migrants. And true to his word, it's begun. Now, the thing is, over this side of the Atlantic, I'm sure there's some amongst us watching the examples been happening, particularly in the last few days over there in the US, who would like our government to follow in a similar manner. Although I think it's highly unlikely with this particular administration and Labour in power. On the other hand, you never know. If the pressure built up from the public, it may take some leaves from Donald Trump's book. You see what's going on in the press.
Tonight, for the first time, U.S. military aircraft flying undocumented migrants out of the country as President Donald Trump launches his deportation campaign. The White House releasing these pictures, dozens of migrants in chains boarding C-17 aircraft.
A few moments later.
So here's what went down. Colombia told Donald Trump, you cannot land military planes in Colombia when you are deporting Colombians in America.
Now, that was a really funny story because the speed in which they did a U-turn when he mentioned 25% imported tariffs from Colombia. At the end of the week, that goes up to 50%. The whole thing turned out to be a misunderstanding, which they rolled back on very quickly.
To Colombia, you need to show Colombians dignity and respect. We're a sovereign nation.
A few moments later.
Just moments ago, Donald Trump reacting to the news that Colombia had blocked planes carrying undocumented migrants from delivering those individuals back to their home country, and Trump now retaliating with tariffs and threats of more tariffs. He said in a post on social media, quote, I was just informed that the 2 repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals.
I tell you what, on this one, Donald Trump ain't joking. Before we continue, just like to have a quick word from our sponsors, Small Debts. If you ever find yourself struggling to get paid, I myself do live streams. Sometimes we've done a show with the bands, and for no other reason other than unexplainable delays, I find myself chasing after the client to get paid after the work's done. And it can become a very stressful situation to be in. In comes Small Debts.
Struggling to get your security deposit back or dealing with unfair charges? At Small Debts, our tenant advocate service fights to get your money back. No stress, no hassle. Take control today. Visit smalldebts.co.uk and start your case now.
Trust me, it helps to have somebody in your corner when you're dealing with matters like that. Anyway, with no further ado, let's follow up on the week's events and these undocumented migrants, as they say, starting with the dangerous criminals and those who've been charged or suspected of serious crimes or being on the watch list. So they say they're gathering them up first. And they warned about this.
We're not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, Gustavo Petro, who is already very unpopular amongst his people. Petro's denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States. So he has then goes on to say that he is taking some action against the Colombian government, including a 25% tariff on goods coming from Colombia immediately, and he's threatening to raise that to up to 50% next week. He also is calling for a travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials.
Thing is, yeah, the argument was it was dehumanizing the fact that they transported them on military planes and they were, from what I understand, shackled. Now, who knows? Maybe that's a more effective and efficient, safer way of transporting the deportees that are known to be dangerous criminals who probably don't want to be forcibly removed from the country. So using that method and the military planes it's the most practical, available way of mass removing these people. Although the argument from the Colombian government that it's they're not having it. It didn't really last very long.
And sanctions on party members and family members that support the Colombian government. So
a few moments later,
several hours of back and forth posturing ensued before finally the White House declared victory. The government of Colombia has agreed to all of President Trump's terms, the press secretary said.
Personally, I reckon if the UK government could get away with a similar maneuver, they'll be on it.
Today's events make clear to the world that America is respected again. It was the unprecedented use of military planes to deport migrants that so angered the Colombian president. But ultimately, it was the threat of tariffs on Colombian goods like coffee that forced him to capitulate. Their public spat, no doubt a taste of things to come, since Trump has threatened to slap tariffs on any country.
Trump is a shrewd businessman, and he knows how to leverage in a way that it has immediate impact. And money usually gets people walking, a little bit less of the talking, as was demonstrated in this situation.
That doesn't bend to his will, even if those tariffs hurt American consumers with increased prices. The president has made clear that immigrants are going home, no matter the cost.
Leia and the Wookiee must never again leave this city.
It was never a condition of our arrangement, nor was giving Han to this bounty hunter.
I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
This deal's getting worse all the time.
Furthermore, I wish you to wear this dress and bonnet.
This was never a condition of our arrangement.
I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
So Trump has hit the ground running with the immigration crisis, but I'm going to now convince you all in the audience that not only did Republicans want this to happen, but secretly the Democrats did too. Here's the evidence.
Have a look at this.
Illegal immigration raids in New York City. Removing the worst first, illegals who've been charged with kidnapping, assault, and burglary. It's a refreshing change from the days of Mayorkas shopping for high-end menswear while a crisis festered under his watch. President Trump's new White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, holding her first briefing and laying the smackdown on liberal reporters who are confused about our immigration laws.
Can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
All have a criminal record.
And welcome to the briefing.
If they broke our nation's laws, yes, they are criminal.
And this is the thing. He did say that he was going to start removing the criminals first. So, probably sending a message that anyone who doesn't fall in the category shouldn't immediately have to be overly concerned. Although the issue, particularly in the sanctuary cities, states, arises where they don't want to cooperate with ICE, so it forces ICE to have to apprehend the said people in the community, which exposes more people to risk. And if they find any other non-criminal undocumented migrants at the time, they'll sweep them up with the people at the top of the list. So if the liberal-leaning cities and states were a little bit more compliant, it will help the said people they say they're trying to support and help.
Meanwhile, President Trump's deportation crackdown is a stunning success. Border agents report shockingly low migrant encounters, with arrivals at the southern border dropping over 60% since 47 took office last week. But the liberal league aims to see any Trump effort as a success, especially if it's supported by most Americans. So, of course, they're reverting to their tired old playbook of calling your opponent a Nazi.
If that sounds vaguely familiar, that's because it is. Similarities to what happened in Germany.
When you start having Gestapo raids in America,
the fear and the panic and the division is, I think, something that we should all be concerned about.
Donald Trump wants a lot of photos because he's not sure he could even hit those Biden hot.
I mean, this is such a familiar playbook.
There are going to be people who see the images of mothers and children who actually will not be affected by it. And that is the piece that concerns me.
All right, Jessica, how do you think today's deportation raids went?
Well, I don't know it.
See, the thing about the Dems, they just can't help themselves when it comes to skewing the context and trying to spin propaganda rather than just, facing the fact that Trump was elected with a mandate to do what they refused to do over the last 4 years. So how can they argue that?
In full, I know that they got a couple of really bad guys. I think that getting one of them who was part of the Aurora apartment complex attacks sends a very good message to say we are tracking you across the country.
That's another funny one because that's something a lot of the news media were reporting as something that didn't really happen and wasn't happening at the time until it was proven. And now it's accepted that this took place and was problematic.
This is not isolated. Like, we're not paying attention to you in a silo. We know where you are and we're coming for you. Obviously, Trump and co know the value of a good TV moment. It feels more difficult to see the Homeland.
It's partly how they won the election. My goodness. Trump is a media genius when it comes to marketing and self-promotion. I suppose that's needed in today's politics where social media plays such a big role.
Homeland Security Secretary. Sorry. In the outfit out there, Tom Homan was in Chicago yesterday. I think that also sends a really strong message. And I have nothing to quibble with these arrests. I think that the points about a population of people who may be undocumented but have not committed other crimes before, besides being scared. There are reports of people hiding in attics. This move potentially that they could be showing up at schools, at churches, at libraries, et cetera, is certainly infusing a level of tenseness into the population.
You see, the thing is, when they barred ICE from going into those places, churches, schools, and other parts of the sanctuary cities, I mean, they're advertising to the criminal fraternity that if you want to, protect yourself, those are the places you want to, inhabit. And then the innocent people, I mean, who's really been helped here?
But this guy should be sent home immediately. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, the only resistance people are upset, Judge, is because people can now go into schools and nab the bad guys. American police, they can go into a school if some 17-year-old has a warrant. Why can't ICE?
Well, ICE can definitely go into school. ICE can go wherever they need to be on an exigent basis. And the president has determined that they...
See, I'm not sure. I don't know if over here in the UK, if we've even got any kind of sanctuary policies like that. I know hundreds of years ago, there were some, when monarchies ruled, there were some rules like that. You can find protection in a cathedral or some type of churches. These days, this day and age, not so sure.
It is going to be an expedited removal process, which means they don't even have to go through an immigration judge right now. There are over
Fast track.
almost 1.5 million already with deportation orders where there is no requirement that they go to court. That doesn't even include the number of criminals. So let's get ready to see this continuously. I have a couple of thoughts. First of all, number one, it is so refreshing to see Kristi Noem on the ground, Tom Homan on the ground, and
Judge Janine's quite interesting when she comments. She doesn't suffer fools.
just as a reminder of how absent Mayorkas was and how absent Biden was for the last 4 years. That's my first point. The second point is within a week, border crossings are down 95%. You can see the difference. The numbers are incredible. Before they even...
From what I understand, before Trump even was inaugurated and, took power, some immigrants chose to self-deport rather than going through the stress of being hunted down and removed in a dehumanizing manner, and also thus preventing them from being able to reapply for asylum in the future, from what I understand. When you think of our system or attempted maneuvers with the Rwanda idea, the millions they spent on it, the time they spent on it, and pretty much, it led to them losing the election to a degree. I think they could learn a few things from what's going on in the States at the moment and Trump's approach. More stick than carrot. After 4 years of an open border, can you really blame him?
Get these people out. The message is out there. Do not cross the American border unless you want to be hustled back to wherever you came from. My third point, calling Trump Hitler. How dare you? How dare you refer to all of this as Gestapo-like brains? These are individuals, one with a double homicide that we know of, pedophiles, burglars, rapists, red notices on Interpol, which means the highest level of criminal, and they're worried about them and not about the Americans to their victimization. And a Gestapo is someone who herded Jews like cattle to extermination camps to their certain death. And you want to refer to this as that? It is not that at all. And finally, we're going to get to the point where, people are going to say, oh, they're hiding, they're worried. Yeah. They are hiding. They will be worried. And, Selena Gomez can keep crying and Joy Reid can keep calling people's names. But the bottom line is they're not here legally. We had a guy who was literally did the same as a foreign saboteur, as I've said in the past. That's Joe Biden, who let them all in and did nothing about it. And don't tell me that.
And there's more.
Ryan brought all his old pension pots together into one easy-to-use.
Dozens of migrants in chains boarding C-17 aircraft.
A few moments later.
So here's what went down. Colombia told Donald Trump, you cannot land military planes in Colombia when you are deporting Colombians.
This is what we want to look at.
This is not Fox, Congressman. You can't just spin a tail and pull the wool over people's eyes. Yeah. This is CNN. This is the news. We're asking to come on and tell the truth.
It's an alarming choice for a man who has often struggled to unequivocally denounce white supremacists. You recall these moments.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
See,
the
greatest pushback they can attempt to have at the moment is the usual calling Trump, who, accusing him of what and more. Unfortunately, I think Trump put up with this the first time round. The insults, the fake news, the talking about his family in a disparaging way, talking about him in all sorts of ways. During public interviews, any media space you can think of, you wouldn't even think he was the president. This time round, I don't think he's putting up with it. He's taken no prisoners, and some of the media outlets on the left who rolled the dice and they picked a side rather than staying somewhere in the middle and presenting fair balanced news stories, particularly with their big hosts, price now. Some of them are being demoted, offered less money on new contracts, and due to either pride or just practicality, some of the big names are choosing to walk rather than, take a lesser position at these big networks.
Words have power, they have meaning, and when Donald Trump speaks, the world listens. Neo-Nazis and white supremacists certainly listen. So why can't he denounce them? Why can't he reject their support?
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
What's your response to Donald Trump saying she should be fired, that Liz Cheney should be fired upon? He keeps speaking in these very extreme terms about the potential dangers to the country if he doesn't win in November. He's used words like bloodbath.
The collapse of the liberal media is looming, and the left has a message.
From not learning from their loss in the election, and, Trump coming in with a powerful mandate, living up to his promises, running with the same old playbook of trying to tear apart his character and the name-calling game. Don't know how much play that's going to have left in it.
Companies. Senator Bernie Sanders shared on X, if CBS caves, the belief that we have an independent media protected by the First Amendment is undermined. CBS stand tall.
Independent. That's what's led them to where they are now.
Or laying off staffers.
And
I loved being at the top of real estate.
Continues and stretches right into
to see what President Trump would say about
Washington and the employees.
Let's take a look at the executive order. What is it? It's saying exactly. Heads of all departments and agencies in the executive department shall, as soon as practicable, take all necessary steps to terminate remote work agreements and require employees to return to work in person at the respective duty stations on a full-time basis, provided that the department and agency heads shall make exemptions they deem necessary. So there are a couple of important things that we need to break down here. First of all, remote workers, these are some folks who've been in an office who are now being told that they need to return to the office if their supervisors say that that's what is necessary.
If that's the contract you signed when you did your interview and took on the job, fair enough. Although from what I understand, on his way out, as another parting gift, like the trying to sell off the parts of the border wall, which he knew Trump would need to use, Biden signed a document with the unions to extend or allow the federal workers to continue to work from home. And they're spending how much to keep empty buildings, offices that are unused running when the staff are working at home. So Trump, he gets his calculator out and like mustard with the takeover of Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X, and saying goodbye to a large majority of the staff who he didn't feel were pulling their weight. I think Trump is going to use a similar method to clean up the wastage in the federal system of staff and employees.
All right, guys. So we got to talk about the latest meltdown from federal employees over the fact that Trump is making them come back to work. Okay. There are a significant amount of federal employees who are working remotely, a lot of whom have kind of moved away from Washington, D.C. Okay. They went to live out in some other place in the country, probably much cheaper.
Look, nice work if you can get it.
And now all of a sudden Trump is saying, no, you got to come back into the office, right? You got to move back. Okay. You got to come back or else you lose your job. So a lot of people face a lot of hard choices and they're not having a great time with the reality that they have to make a hard choice about essentially moving back to DC for their federal job or to move back to wherever the government is telling them to move back to. And I want to talk about that, okay? Because there are opinions across the board about this mandate for federal workers to come back to work.
We do need to go back to work.
See, this is the thing. Trump's coming with quite a few mandates from the electorate who voted him back into power. And he's looking to deliver, unlike some of the previous presidents and politicians in general. They promise and then it gets lost over time in the mix of one thing or another. Trump, he's holding to his word.
In my opinion, because everything's over now.
I don't necessarily think it's I think it's a political stunt.
Imagine how much money it's taking to actually run those buildings. No one's working there.
One of the supporters of this return to work effort is none other than DC's Democratic Mayor Muriel Bowser, was cited several times over the last few years that the lack of federal workers in the nation's capital has hurt the local economy. And while some attorneys tell Fox 5 they expect lawsuits to try to stop.
Look, anyone who has a vague sense of these things, employment and work is an ecosystem. One part feeds and drives the other. So you take out one major element, there's a domino effect. So with all the benefits of working from home, economically speaking, it hurts another area.
The White House effort, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen says he does have concerns about this one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. A lot of federal employees are not happy about this. In fact, a lot of the spouses of federal employees are not happy about this, and that is the situation.
So in a nutshell, this is a totally different era globally we're moving into. Even us at this side of the Atlantic in the UK, we're affected by these moves. We're going to be affected by these moves. And I suspect we're going to follow suit in a typical British manner. And we're going to adopt some of these methods, particularly if they seem to be working in the immigration department and other things probably to do with the economy. While we're talking about economics funds, which is nothing that I'm a specialist at, what I do know is fair is fair. You do a fair day's work. You exchange your skills for an agreed amount of remuneration. You expect to get paid. So whether it's your deposit that you have to chase after when you move and you're trying to get that back from a landlord, or you've worked for somebody and you're chasing after them to get paid, and you just get to that frustrating point where you're just not sure what to do legally, small debt's going to help. So just have a little final word from our sponsors.
Have you been unfairly charged or conned by a company? At Small Debts, no company is too big and no debt too small. Small Debts is here to help.
Listen, some have called it the golden age. I think Trump's used those words himself. Things are moving thick, fast, and fairly furiously over there in the States, spread into different parts of the globe with the pushback and the rapid turnarounds when they hear the stick of tariffs being waived. I think we're still going to be watching this space. So for now, thank you for spending some time. Myself, Onyedia, here at CornerSpeak. Please like, express yourself and comment on these videos. Subscribe to the channel. Once again, be good, be safe, and if you can, be creative. We out.